This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Tez Ilyas, and I'm here to tell you about my podcast, Tez Talks. It'll make you laugh, cry, and even question the cultural choices you have historically made. You can subscribe to Tez Talks on BBC Sounds.
How's it going? Good, I hope. I'm Darren Harriott, and here's this week's Comedy of the Week from BBC Radio 4. Enjoy.
With you. It's a series about me, Angela Barnes, and how the death of my dad, Derek, made me look at life. Now, my dad passed away, age 60, on the 31st of July, 2008. And this show is called You Can't Take It With You because that was my dad's favourite saying. Well, his second favourite. His favourite was when the council start filling in those potholes, then I'll declare all my earnings. As part of our saying goodbye ritual, we loaded up my dad's coffin with items for him to take on his final journey. Someone put in a childhood photo, someone else a miniature of whiskey, and I put in 70 kilos of gravel as I had a long-running grudge against one of the pallbearers. So, I am using this series to remember what my dad took with him, but also to look at what items I could end up taking with me on my final journey. Because, of course, unless you've left very definite and legally binding funeral instructions, you won't have a choice of what goes with you. And I'm going to have to do that because, I wouldn't let my boyfriend pack for an overnight trip, let alone potential eternity. Knowing him, I'd end up facing forever with a 5-way Swiss Army knife and no knickers. Which is either the worst holiday ever or the start of that recurring dream I have about Bear Grylls. Now, this episode is about domesticity. Your home life setup will have quite the effect on how you're sent off from this world. So if you belong to a strong family unit, you're likely to have a large, tasteful ceremony full of your nearest and dearest. Whereas if you've just had a row with your partner, you're more likely to be slung in a skip round the back of the Texaco. Other cultures, of course, have traditions to do with death rituals. For example, in ancient India and some parts of Southeast Asia, a wife was expected to throw herself onto the funeral pyre to self-immolate following the death of her husband. Absolutely no way. The only reason I'd jump onto that fire is if my boyfriend still had my Cafe Nero loyalty card in his pocket. R.I.P. and all that, but I am one stamp away from a free mocker. Now, I was very close to my dad. I was his firstborn, and we had a very strong father-daughter bond. My parents divorced when I was 9 years old. Now, it's a lot to take in at that age, when you're 9 years old. I hadn't even kissed a boy yet. Although, by that logic, my parents shouldn't have divorced till I was 27. Only joking, I'm from Maidstone. I would have been cast out. The divorce set off a chain of family events that's way too complex to explain here. If you want some idea of what my family was like, just watch any episode of Jeremy Kyle through a kaleidoscope while off your tits on nail polish. That should do it. But through it all, I kept a close relationship with my dad. I didn't live with him, but I would see him every Sunday and Thursday when I was growing up. And it's only now that I realise how hard it must have been for him to keep me entertained on those days. He lived in a council flat, he had no disposable income, and let's face it, Sundays in the 1980s, they were properly boring. Weren't they? Like, properly boring Sunday. My friend said to me the other day, my son, he gets bored waiting for an app to load. Get lost, that's not boring. You know what we would do on Sunday afternoons in the 80s? Just when you thought your day wasn't tedious enough, my dad would go, get in the car, we're going to go and visit someone. That's what we'd do when we were on Sundays in the 80s. We would visit people for no reason other than to ruin their day. Yeah. And do you know what? We never told them we were coming. The worst 4 words you could hear on a Sunday in the 1980s were, "We were just passing." Could you imagine doing that to someone now, just turning up? Hello, not even texting them first. They'd be like, someone had better have died. But no, we'd spend our Sunday afternoons with people who were wishing they'd hoovered and we'd bugger off. That's... This is true, isn't it? In the 1980s, the only people who phoned ahead were the IRA. Now, occasions were very important to my dad. He loved a big occasion. He was definitely not one of these people who says it's all commercial nonsense. He loved it all. Valentine's Day, Halloween, Christmas, he went mental for all of it. I think this was just another of his ways to tell me that he loved me. You know, either that or he had shares in Clinton's. I don't know. It didn't matter that he had no money, he'd make do, and you'd always get a card for every occasion. He might not always have been able to afford a gift, but a card showed that he was thinking of you. That's why after he died, I had a tattoo on my wrist of a tracing from the last birthday card he ever sent me. The audience here can see it. It simply says, love you, comma, Dad. It's in his handwriting. It's lovely, isn't it? When I went to get it done, I took my friend Nikki, and she said, where are you going to put your tattoo? I said, it's going on my wrist. And she looked at me and she said, is that your me-time hand? So it's on my left wrist. Every year since I can remember, my dad would send me a Valentine's Day card. He never signed it, and he always denied it. And this went on until he died. And I used to think it was sweet, but if you really think about it, there must have been some point he looked at me and went, look at the state of that. No one's ever going to send out a Valentine's card. I guess I'm just going to have to do it. It's a bit weird getting Valentine's cards from your dad. It's a bit like your granddad calling you to wish you a happy National Lingerie Day. But he went really overboard at Christmas. He loved Christmas. I love Christmas. I start getting excited from about August, and I really love a winter wonderland. Right, because they popped up at... When did Christmas get so German? When did that happen? You can't move now, can you, for winter wonderlands? They're everywhere. Those little wooden huts filled up with foreign food, like outdoor Lidls. When did that happen? I love it. I wonder if in Bavaria they have English winter wonderlands. You know, you go to the woods of Bavaria and there's a man in a Santa hat selling 3 lighters for £1. I wonder if that... Now, Christmas at my dad's meant getting at least 5 gifts. None of them would come from my dad. You would get one from Frosty Tea Snowman, one from the Sugar Plum Fairy, one from Rudolph, and then when you were over 18, you would get a present from Sexy Santa. Now, I feel this needs some explanation. The Sexy Santa gift would be a novelty item from my dad's sex shop. That's the sex shop he managed, not the one he frequented. I was going to say he wasn't a pervert, but he was. I mean, like I said, Jeremy Kyle and nail polish. But, now, in my previous jobs, I quite often had to work on Christmas Day, but my dad would always send me a parcel so that I had something to open on Christmas morning. And one year, I missed the delivery of the parcel, so I had to collect it from the post office. And that year, Sexy Santa had got me a little badge with a button on it. It said, press here to turn me on. Now, I'm aware this is 6:30 on Radio 4, so let's just say that when you pressed it, you heard the sound of a lady having a lovely old time. Now, of course, as the postal employee handed me the parcel in a packed delivery office, of course the button activated. And all I could do was look him in the eye and say, it's from my dad. Our studio audience to think about what they might like to take with them on their final journey into the afterlife. So you leave the house with your hair looking amazing like that. Is incredible. What's your name, sir?
Cameron.
So how old are you, Cameron?
26.
26, so young. I think I'm wearing knickers older than you. That's really upset me, Cameron. But you're 26, you don't think about dying. Of course you don't, but it's going to happen, don't you? It's going to happen to all of us. So if you had to choose one item to take with you on your final journey, what would it be?
I mean, I'm going to be boring and say a smartphone so you can navigate wherever you end up going. Or if I'm trapped in the coffin,
but
I can then
you think they've
read.
got sat-nav in hell? Is that what you're saying? Oh, heaven, sorry, I don't know why I went straight to hell then. Do you believe in the afterlife, Cameron? Do you think
No.
Well, that's that done then. OK. So, Cameron, you take your smartphone with you. And what's your lovely... Is this your girlfriend?
Yes.
What's your name?
Leah.
Leah. What would you give Cameron to take with him? What do you think he can't live without?
I would say me, but I'm not going with him. If that's-
Very good point, well made. Brilliant, thank you. Anyone else? This gentleman here's got his hand up. What's your name, sir?
My name's Drew.
Drew?
And I would take my favourite pair of grips. I'm a plumber.
Am I the only person who doesn't know what a pair of grips is? That definitely sounds like something my dad sold in his shop to me. What's a pair of grips? Like
Pliers, big pliers.
Pliers. Why didn't you say pliers?
Because they're grips.
Because they're grips. Anyone else think of anything they'd like to take with them?
A squirrel.
A squirrel? What's your name, sir?
Cyril.
Cyril.
Yeah.
I don't know why I bother writing stuff. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Now, luckily, my domestic life now is a lot less complicated than when I was growing up. I live just me and my boyfriend, Matt. We live in Brighton, just the two of us. I do hate the word boyfriend, by the way, but I don't know what else to call him. We're not married. He's not my husband. He's not my partner. We don't run a used car dealership. I don't know. An other half, that can sod off, can't it? Other half. He's not my other half. He's a whole. With a W, that's... I don't believe in all that two become one rubbish. I'm not sharing my soul with anyone. I won't share my dessert. Absolutely not. No. So boyfriend will have to do till I come up with something better. I've tried coming up with a few terms, but apparently being called my talky shag man is, I quote, demeaning. So Matt and I, we've been together for 4 years. We've just bought our first flat together, which is the biggest statement of commitment since I gave him the spare keys to my biscuit cupboard. I mean, not the secret one with the good biscuits in. Take more than 4 years to be that sure. But before I met him, I was single for a really long time. You know, like an embarrassingly long time. I thought it was terminal. I did. I thought I was going to be one of those women who just dies alone at home with a cat eating her face. That's what I thought. I mean, that wouldn't happen, because I won't have a cat. If I want something that ignores me while I make its dinner, I'll get back with my ex. Some people find it very easy to get into relationships, don't they? They bounce from one to the next, to the next. Like, I never found it that easy. Did you know even Oscar Pistorius managed to get himself a new girlfriend? I know, right? She must be crapping herself. Largely because that's safer than using the bathroom. Now, I'm starting to think that I was cursed in love. I really did, because I genuinely lost my virginity on a Friday the 13th. I did. It was Friday the 13th of May, 1994. It was my first love. I wasn't allowed him to stay over at my house, but my friend's mum was Belgian. She was a lot more lax about these things, so we stayed there. She even gave us a special cigarette for afterwards. And that's why I love the EU. I was nervous about Matt and I living together, to be honest. It's sharing a bedroom with someone, you know, not having a space that was just mine or nobody else's. You know, I'd never really shared a bedroom before. Well, actually, that's not true. My mum reminded me of something that I'd completely forgotten. I shared a room until I was 6 with my nan. That's weird, isn't it? We had bunk beds. She was on the top bunk. Is it any wonder I've never wanted to grow up when I spent the first 6 years of my life with a Catherine Cookson and false teeth on my bedside table? We're very different, Matt and I, but it works. You know, opposites attract, that's why. The only thing we actually have in common is that we have the same size feet. Which doesn't really reflect well on either of us, if I'm honest. But we've been together now for 4 years, so I figured, you know, if he is doing it for a bet, he's really bloody committed to winning it, so... Now, I don't know if we'll bother getting married. It's not that we're against marriage, necessarily. It's just we've always got something else to spend our money on, like going to everyone else's bloody weddings. I was at a wedding recently, and the bride's mother told me that that wedding had cost £22,000. Yeah, I don't know about you, but where I come from, if I've spent 22 grand on something, I want at the very least to be able to drive away in it. Or if I'm up north, live in it. Property's just cheaper up north, it's a fact. this wedding, on the table, as decorations, they had real live goldfish. Yet there was no free booze for the guests. Now, here's a tip. If you're budgeting for a wedding, free booze for your guests should come way before the table fish. Right? I've been to a wedding where they had owls as ring bearers. Owls as ring bearers. All you've done there is increase the chances of getting shat on your wedding day. Well done. Now, Matt and I, we've also decided that we don't want children. And people think that when you say you don't want kids, it's because you hate kids. And I don't hate kids. I just don't trust me to keep one alive. Different thing. I myself have never had the calling to be a mother. It's just never happened to me. I do understand biological urges. It's just that mine are mostly for carbs. And babies, they are famously protein-based. So... But I love my friends' kids. I do. I properly love my friends' kids. I take them out, I spoil them, I treat them, I love them. There's one I hate, but the rest... Awkward, isn't it, when you hate one of your friends' kids? It's awkward. I think my friend knows I hate her kid as well. He's an only child. They live in a block of flats. For his birthday, I bought him a seesaw. I mean, his name's Tobias, for God's sake. I can't... It's not the kid's fault I hate him, it's her fault. It's what he's forced. She makes him wear a blazer. That is creepy. Right? I think a 4-year-old in a blazer is just as creepy as a grown man in a nappy. I'm sorry, I do. She's sending him to this posh private prep school. I had to take him there once when she was ill, and I was looking at all the coat pegs with their names on. It was all Jacintas and Aramintas and Freddies and Pop. There was a Darren. I think his mum won a scratch card. I don't know. There are lots of women like me who have made this choice, you know, so much so that marketing people have identified women like us as a whole demographic. They call us PANKs, which stands for Professional Auntie No Kids. Yeah. Now, for a start, I object to the use of professional there, because I have yet to receive any payment. Because what they mean is that I'm childless, but I have a full-time job and a disposable income, and I can use that money to spoil my friends' kids. You know, what they mean is I'm a working auntie, no kids, but they can't really call it that. Apparently, they think we're a market to be targeted, get this, for tourism, because they think we're going to take our friends' kids on holiday. Absolutely not. No way. 2 hours max. Fill them up with sugar, send them home. That's it. Sorry. Where I come from, if your auntie takes you away, it's because your parents have gone to prison. Now, people often just can't get their heads around you not wanting children. You know, it's a decision I've made and I'm happy with. The actress Jennifer Aniston, she wrote a brilliant blog about how fed up she was of the press feeling sorry for her because she doesn't have kids. And the gist of it was, I'm Jennifer Aniston. I got paid $1 million an episode for Friends and I've done it with Brad Pitt. My life is definitely better than yours. That was the gist. Now, occasionally people get angry. They get angry that I'm somehow not fulfilling my responsibility as a woman by having children. They say things like, what about all those poor people who want children and can't have them? And I feel for those people. Like, my heart goes out to them. I can't imagine what pain that must be like, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But I just don't see how me having a child would help them. It's like when you're a kid and you won't eat your dinner and your mum says there's kids starving in Africa and you're like, should we post it to them? I don't know. Often, the people who are most angry about me as a woman not wanting children are the same people who think that this country has high levels of immigration. Well, are we full up or not? Pick a team. Why do people assume I just haven't thought about it properly and that I'll come round to it? My decision is based on my own lived experience and knowing me better than anyone else does. I think I made the decision not to have children quite young because I was 12 when my mum had my baby brother Phil, or as I like to call him, whoops. I remember all too clearly how the world turned upside down having a baby in the house. I am under no romantic illusion that your life doesn't change beyond recognition. But I've seen it with my own eyes. This thing arrived in our house and he screamed day and night and we didn't sleep for a year. And then he got to be a toddler and that's when the questions start. Is it constant? But why? But who? But why? Never waiting for an answer, just questions, questions. And then he got to 5 and I was 17 and that's when he started grassing me up. Mummy, I saw Angie kissing a boy. Mummy, I saw Angie smoking a cigarette. I didn't have a brother. I had a KGB agent in my house. I was filming a TV show recently, right? Now, before you think that I'm showing off, let me tell you two things. One, it was for Channel 5. And two, it was called Puppies Make You Laugh Out Loud. I would be less embarrassed to tell you I'd done Babe Station. I would. Now, the programme was about dogs, and my angle on it was that I've always wanted a dog more than I've wanted a child, which I have. And we finished filming, and the director, who was a woman about my age, she came up to me afterwards and she said, "Don't you want kids then, Angela?" And I said no. I said no in a way that I hoped said, "I am not discussing this with you any further." And then she said, "No, you'll change your mind when you get a bit older." She said, "I expect next time I see you, you'll have a baby on your hip." So if I do, you better call the police, because it means I've definitely stolen a baby. I mean, I wanted to say that, but I didn't, because she said I'd change my mind when I get a bit older, which means she thinks I'm, 30? Sod it, she can say what she likes. But the point is, if you don't know whether someone has a child or not, or why they don't have one, don't ask them, right? It's none of your business, is it? It's not the small talk that you think it is. In fact, do you think you're going to have children? That's a question that could have an awkward or upsetting answer. Couldn't it? Why would you ask anyone a question that could have an awkward or upsetting answer? You wouldn't ask someone why they're bald, would you? You wouldn't ask a couple from the southern states of America how they're related. Like, why? Why does this question seem to be okay? When people ask me, I want to make it awkward, I say to them, "Oh, I had a baby, but I ate it." There are loads of reasons to not have kids, aren't there? Loads. Financial, emotional, vaginal. Oh, come on, as women, we are getting our bits looked at all the time, aren't we? All the time. Nurses, gynecologists, sod it, I'll let the window cleaner have a look. Everyone. Now, every time a nurse or a gynecologist has had a look at my bits, they have told me, and I quote, that I have a lovely cervix. Thank you, I grew it myself. Now, I don't know what that means, but I do know that in my life, I've been told my cervix is lovely way more than I've been told my face is. And I'll be damned if I'm going to ruin the most complimented part of my body by shoving a baby through it. I am literally beautiful on the inside. And I want it to stay that way. Give me a cheer if you've got kids. Give me a cheer if you haven't got kids. No one needs me to point out the difference there, do they? How awake and happy that second. God, sir, you're there. What's your name?
Hi, it's Kevin.
Kevin, so how old are your children?
I've got one at 27 and twins at 26.
So you had a little baby, and then twins came along.
14 months later, yeah.
Blimey, you didn't hold on, did you, mate?
No. 3 under 2. I tell you what, it's the best contraception ever.
So what do you think they'd choose for you to take with you on your final journey?
Well, I come different to most people. I've already planned my funeral.
OK.
But I want to go out in style, so I've organised it all.
Good for you, mate.
And so I've got downtown coming out of the church with Shilda Clark, so I'm going downtown.
So you know where this is perfect.
Yeah, and then afterwards I've got like a jazz band organised. And then when I leave the following day, it has to be in a Rolls Royce. I've told my son, if you take me in a Jag or a Ford, I'll haunt them forever.
Sometimes think about what my decision not to have a family might mean, you know, because there are consequences. For example, I'm the last living Barnes in my family. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, if I do get married, I probably won't change my name. That reason and the one that my boyfriend's surname is Wooden. It's a Norfolk thing, apparently, yeah. We can't go double-barrelled, can we? Wooden Barnes. I do realise that during the course of this show, I've given you my boyfriend's full name. So you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to go away and Google him. Good luck if you try that. I tried to do that when we first met. If you Google Matt Wooden, all you get is furniture. But no, we're happy as we are, Matt and I. I think it's because we met each other in our late 30s. I think that's a good time to meet someone, because you've worked out what you want from life, you've worked out what you will put up with in a relationship and what you won't put up with, you know. And I'm going to say something now that's proved controversial, and I've said it before. I don't trust childhood sweethearts. Now, I'm sure if you are one, you'll be fine. I just think they're the same people that go on game shows and don't gamble for the big prize. I've had a lovely day. You'll do. There are 7 billion people on this planet. What are the chances your ideal one sat behind you in maths? Really, you know. I just think you've got to shop around, that's all. And I really shopped around. I think that during my teens and my 20s, I was getting love wrong. I thought loving someone was about needing them and them needing you. And to be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I found being needed a real pain in the backside. You know, it took the fun out of it. I realised that the things in my life that I need are boring. You know, I need water. I want a gin and tonic. I don't want to be someone's water that they know they have to have you there every day and they can't even remember why. You know, I want to be the thing that they look forward to coming home to at the end of the day. I want to be their gin and tonic. And that's why the item that I'm going to take with me on my final journey to represent my home life is a gin and tonic, because it reminds me of my Matt. Cheers. Yeah. Because you know what? We live side by side, but we're independent, and that's what's so beautiful about it. He's there because he chooses to be, not because he has to be. And I know that if I die, Matt will be sad, but he'll be all right. Because he doesn't depend on me for his survival. And I know that for a fact, because at least once a week, Matt will leave a room and turn the light out, completely forgetting that I'm still in it. Now, if that isn't love, I don't know what is. These little personal memories, they feel insignificant at the time, but they're actually packed with meaning. So when my dad was cremated, we each wrote him a letter and placed it in his coffin, and it was filled with personal messages that reminded us of the good times. But that's not all I put in. As he was given his final farewell in a packed crematorium and a coffin was being taken away for the final time, he wasn't seen off to the sounds of tears. No, he was seen off to the sound of a woman having a lovely old time. That's right, I snuck the badge into his coffin. Payback's a bitch and I got you, Dad. Now, I'm ending every episode of this series